Hello, adventurers. Guys, it is towards the end of the month, and we are getting ready to go through Reddit's DMAcademy, sort by top of the month, and dole out some advice for people who are asking for it. Some of the posts that we saw this month, one of them was just solved by just reading the actual rules. I don't know why everyone ever tried that. And one of them was so good from a new DM that is actually going to change how I run my games. Excellent stuff today. So go check that out. Check us out, curmudgeonsanddragons.com, and links to all of these are going to be in the show notes. You can read along with us. And with that being said, everybody roll initiative.
Sometimes talking with friends feels like role-playing. Sometimes it feels like combat. Join us at the round table and roll initiative. This is Curmudgeons and Dragons.
Hello, adventurers. Guys, we're getting towards the end of the month here. We always like to do a nice little scroll through Reddit's DMAcademy. I got Jim here.
Hey, how we doing?
Josie is still here.
Yeah, I never miss an opportunity to peruse Reddit.
Or DMAcademy.
Yeah.
And Greg still taking some time off. We'll see Greg again soon. I got some stuff pulled up here from DMAcademy. What we like to do is we sort by top posts of the month and look for posts that are looking for advice. And then we kind of dole out some advice. So you guys ready to go?
I'm full of great advice for any and all DMs.
Every time we do this, Josie, you say that, and every time you always have good stuff to contribute. So like,
it's true.
So like, maybe shut the fuck up about it. I don't know.
I will never shut up. For $8,000 a week,
So
I will shut the fuck up.
I don't think you will, and I think you're leaving money on the table.
$8,000 a week, I will shut the fuck up.
So crowdsourcing for shutting Josie the fuck up is going to start on our Kickstarter. Could you imagine if we had a Patreon? I don't need no dollars that bad. All right.
So the first Patreon where people would pay to get us to not produce content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about that, Josie. So we have one patron and it's Jason. All right.
Funding this whole endeavor.
Yep. Not that different from now. Anyway, so the top post of this month, I couldn't leave this one alone. This one got so heated that they locked the post. It's how do you feel about saying no to things that can't be justified narratively? One of my players is a Pact of the Chain warlock with an invisible imp who follows him. When he was trying to bargain with a shopkeep for a discount, I asked for a persuasion check, and he had his imp take the help action. How is your imp helping you? He just does. The shopkeep isn't even aware of your imp there. The fact that he's with me makes me confident I can strike a good deal. It's like, no, that doesn't make sense. You need to describe how he's helping. You're nerfing my familiar. Familiars are allowed to take the help action. That's the post. That's...
But, okay, the immediate response would be, if you can't tell me how he's helping, he can't really be using help, can he?
I think that's where the controversy came in, because mechanically, yeah, sure, he can take a help action, but narratively, how? And we're not exactly in a combat situation here, so the mechanical rules are a little less rigid.
Important, yeah.
And Jim, I see you nodding your head here. What's going on in there?
I mean, like, importantly, the imp is invisible, but not silent. Like, if he's going to be whispering in his master's ear or something like that, the shopkeep is going to hear that. I don't know. Like, this is one of those things where, like, the rules allow it, but, like, it's sort of always understood that the rules have to give you a place to engage those mechanics and just, and also like just put some effort into it, a tiny little bit of effort to get to get that reward that you're asking for.
I'm scrolling through some of the comments.
Story, please. Like, that should be table stakes.
I'm scrolling through some of the comments here. My favorite one so far. So the actual question at the top is, how do you feel about saying no to things that can't be justified narratively? And there's one comment here, and I just scrolled past it. I feel great about it. It's practically my job.
I feel that way about that.
It feels great. A rogue asks for advantage on their stealth roll just because they're hidden. I said, are you invisible? Are they deaf or blind? Otherwise, just roll the dice and add your +9. There is one comment here right at the top that is pretty damning to this whole thing. It's actually, there's more upvotes on this comment than there are on the post.
We'd love to see it.
And that is, this is coming from user Tomedunn, Tomedunn. In this case, the answer is simply that the help action doesn't exist outside of combat. The help action is listed under the Actions in Combat section of the chapter that covers combat rules. This is the same reason why you can't take the ready action outside of combat. The rules for helping outside of combat are covered under Working Together in the chapter covering ability score rules, which makes a point of stating, quote, a character can only provide help if the task is one that he or she could attempt alone. So if your invisible imp couldn't attempt to persuade the NPC alone, then they can't help the PC do the same. And
so the rules as written says no. Where's the argument now? I'm confused.
I don't think there is one. I think the post just got super heated and people were just piling on how much they don't want to give their players anything they don't deserve, which, I'm for it.
Yeah, fair. Reasonable.
Now, the response to that is there's always going to be that player who says, I slapped the shopkeeper to begin combat. Now can I use the help action?
A little chaos never hurt nobody. Except apparently
this is where you open and shut, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, sure sounds that way. I mean, you can have the imp appear and try to, startle the shopkeeper and do that or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like costs you one sentence worth of effort.
Yeah.
To give the DM what they want and everybody is happy and then the game can go on.
Yeah. Yeah. There'll be a lazy player here that just doesn't want to even conceive how their invisible imp could possibly help them. But I think with a little bit of creativity, which if you're playing this game, I hope you have at least a little bit. I think this is spinnable. I don't know, but good for the DM for standing the ground, I think.
I mean, my advice to that DM is to just make it a rule in their game, like I have in my game, which is all interactions with shopkeeps, assume that you have done whatever negotiation can be done, and the price that I tell you is the price that you have arrived at. And we don't spend time jerking around with trying to haggle.
Thank you.
Because there's few things in the game I find more boring than it's a routine shopping trip and then you're going to spend 10 minutes trying to, negotiate over the price of your pythons or something like that. Wow, am I not interested in that? My
characters just shout what they want from the doorway of the shop and just walk out with as little interaction as possible.
There you go. Treat it like a drive-through. That's what you do.
I don't want a shopping episode. A drive-through. Why am I not doing walk-up windows in my shops?
I don't know. Why aren't you?
I'm doing it from now on forever. We're never going inside another shop. That's another episode. All right.
Awesome. Jason hates shopping.
Jason fucking hates shopping so much. Jason hates everyone else shopping. Jason gets in and out of there, buys what he needs. Just like every hack 80s comedian talking about the difference between men and women shopping. Was it Sinbad?
Yes.
Was this whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
My players are Sinbad's wife and I am Sinbad.
There you go.
They'll just be like, oh, well, what if you throw in this? But shut the fuck up. Just buy it and get out. We need these potions. He's bleeding. All right.
Yes.
All right. Next story. This is from user Inky Feathers. Players are easy to find is something I see relatively often on here. How many DMs actually play with strangers and random players? Nothing in the post that kind of adds to that. So, but how many players do you actually play with strangers and random players? I am at the stage in my DMing career, if you want to call that, where I would not be comfortable taking a stranger at my table. I'm inviting people on a personal basis, and some of them will reach out to me and want to join in because people have a big mouth about how much fun it is. But Jim, you kind of made a career out of this, and a literal career.
Yeah, so I think there's a difference between, and there's a whole range here too. We're gonna play a Discord game online with people from all over the world.
That's an extreme case, yeah.
We did no vetting of, and we're just playing by voice. Is a good way to get sent dick pics or whatever. That that's one extreme. But plenty of people play that way. We'll
thousands. There's thousands of games going on right now.
Oh yeah. I'm astonished. I'm old enough that I'm astonished at that. That people are just oh, I went on Discord and I found 5 random people and we played Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, that sounds like a nightmare.
I don't talk to strangers, like, unless it's absolutely necessary. Like, I asked to be moved to the kitchen, so I would only interact with people I've already met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like the kids, the kids do it that way. So like I owned a game store. We've talked about this before for many years, and we ran in-store D&D. And so that was running for strangers, technically, but there were rules and guidelines. You know, we had rules for the store, all of the DMs that worked for me, and they worked for me. I paid everybody that ran games for us officially. So that, you know, so I could, which meant I could fire them if they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And that was the most important
distinction. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And everyone understood. And I, you know, and when we sat down to talk about it, I said, these are the rules. If you break them, I will fire you. You will not be able to run games here anymore. But, you know, I was getting paid to deliver an experience, which means the kind of D&D I ran and the way I ran it, and, you know, how closely we stuck to raw, and, you know, how what kind of jokes we made at the table in reference to a previous or future episode, depending on on when that falls.
If we release an order, which I'm pretty sure we are, that's going to be this past Friday's horror story. Yeah.
There we go. In reference to our last horror story, you know, what kind of jokes you could tell were prescribed and stuff like that because of
episode 78. It's the episode right before this one if you want to check that out.
Oh, there we go.
Hopefully you already have, so that you don't have to stop what you're doing right now, go back, listen, so that you understand the joke.
Yeah.
And I've run at a bunch of conventions too. I do a lot of that, running games at conventions, things like Games on Demand and stuff like that. And again, that's strangers, but there's context. There are rules and guidelines and safety tools and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's ways to mitigate all those troubles that you can run into with strangers. But, you know, it's still a crapshoot. It's a different kind of game than if you're running with, you know, like I said, your beer buddies who you've been hanging out with for the last decade.
Yeah, I think it relies a lot on what kind of person you are too, because like I straight up don't want to play D&D with people I don't want to tell stories with. Like, I'm very selective about the kind of people that I want to play this game with, which is also why it's so hard to find a game. But like, if you are cool with just being like, yeah, I went on a chat room and I found a bunch of people that already had characters rolled up and we're like, yeah, we'll jump in a chat, like a call real quick, and we can just do a one shot. That sounds, like Jim said earlier, my worst fucking nightmare.
That sounds awful. Now,
but if you're into that, good for you.
If these are people who are, you know, going not super far out of their way, but like they went and found the server, they went and like went through everything with Discord, and like they're looking for games, you have to assume that at least part of them wants to play along.
It's the hope, anyway.
It's the hope, of course. You know, with no bar of entry, you know, then anybody's in. But I think that's the hope going into it.
But Josie, I love that distinction that you made there about people you want to tell stories with. Because I ran 2 kinds of games in the store. And my Friday night Marvel superheroes game was with 5 other people I wanted to tell stories with. That I wanted to be in comic books with, right?
Yeah.
And that game was very different. We started out as as strangers, as acquaintances, because I just put a sign up and said, hey, anybody that wants to, you know, come be superheroes with me, let's do this. But by 6 months of that game, we were friends. We were like gamer friends, right? And that game was very different than the goal of that game. And like you said, my desire I was in that game to tell stories with people I liked. When I ran in the store, I was there to make money professionally to kind of support the store, but also to teach the game to people. That was the joy and the interest that I got from running for strangers, was not because I was looking to strangers for any kind of social fulfillment, but because people were coming to me as as something of an authority, right? As someone who could teach them the game, who could provide that context for them. And so the fulfillment, the satisfaction I got from running those games where I was teaching is a very different kind of thing than I got
whole different vibe.
Exactly, making stories with
it's literally it's like hanging out with somebody that teaches second grade. Like, they're a much different person on the clock as opposed to off the clock.
Sometimes.
Hopefully.
I've hung out with kindergarten teachers.
My sister's best friend, or one of her best
Yeah.
friends, is a teacher. And boy, are they wild on the weekends. Crazy.
But what you said about
Good job.
like putting yourself in that kind of authoritative role where you get to be the teacher and everything. I love that in the games that I run, in the games that I get to sit in on, and even just doing this show. I get a couple of friends, a couple of locals who listen to it, and they'll just ask me questions. I love it.
Yeah.
Which if you're listening to the show, this is a wide open invite to ask me D&D shit. I will take any excuse to talk about this, and you might regret it. So,
While we're saying hi to people, hello, Marissa. How are you?
is that your kindergarten teacher friend?
No, that is not. That is my friend that listens to this podcast.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's just guess we're doing shout outs
You're
now.
saying
Sorry.
your DMs are open, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll take that. We'll do.
Your
If we
DM
get enough-
squared.
If people want to send emails right to us with their own questions, we'll do a segment called DMs in the DMs. Slide up all in the DMs. All right, next post. This is from user RawToast24.
Incredible.
Love it. It's so
You,
hard
sir,
to read.
are bread.
It's hard to read some of these with yeah. That's what Raw Toast is. I know what you're doing.
I know.
Post is titled, I miss my assistant to the DM. I had a player who I internally referred to as my assistant to the DM. He would send subtle reminders to the group a couple days before each session, so I didn't feel like I was constantly nagging and reminding everyone. He would offer advice on rules I was a bit hazy on without ever trying to overrule me. He helped rein in the group's murder hobo tendencies, took the baits I would set up to advance the plot, was ready to go during his turns, and built a character that I could actually build a story around. He got a really cool job opportunity on the other side of the country at the beginning of the year and had to leave the table. Since then, I've had 4 out of 6 sessions canceled at the last minute because people forgot we were playing, and the sessions that we have played are starting to feel laborious. Does anyone else have a favorite player at their table, and how did you cope with losing them? So this is less of an advice thing and more of just like players need to like this is the model for players.
How to be a good player 101. Step 1, make sure you're someone your DM will miss when you go.
Right. And some of the specifics that they gave, offering rules clarifications, checking in with the rest of the people, stop taking the burden of nagging your players away from the DM. This is something I struggle with. Now, granted, the games I'm running right now, because I'm busy in the summers, are all one shots, but this goes beyond D&D and goes beyond gaming. There's times where I've been in this cover band for 12 years. And sometimes when it gets to like practice or needing to learn a new song or even just any kind of like shaping up that I got to get these guys to do, I got to like tell the bass players like, hey, can you text the group and just remind them about practice? Cause I can't be the hammerhead all the time. I need someone else.
Yeah.
And that's super important.
In my head, it shouldn't just be the DM that is excited about playing enough to remember
Yes.
and like ask people. So
The game I'm playing in right now is only 3 players plus a DM. And a lot of these things, now the other 2 players are very new. So like being able to offer advice on rules, I do help. I try to wait until I'm asked or until it's very obvious that something is like completely wrong. I will try not to overrule. I hope I'm doing a good job of not overruling. Joe, you can tell me. The rest of this is like reminding each other, like trying to see like if everyone's schedule's lining up this week and stuff like that. Everyone has been great on that. Experience aside, I would love to have these players at my table. Jimmy, have you had players like this?
I mean, I try to very strongly encourage everybody to, one of the things about, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm going to tie it in, I swear. One of the things about like not having people on their phone or like reading a comic book or, playing Fortnite or something when it's not their turn is that it's important for the players to model the enthusiasm for whoever the spotlight is on in the same way that the DM does. And so like, I feel like the most important thing you can do as a player to make the DM's job easier doesn't have to do with the DM. It has to do with being like a good, attentive, enthusiastic audience member for your fellow players.
That's huge.
Because man, there's nothing worse, nothing more demoralizing as a DM than to like, you're giving your attention to one of the players and you're having a great scene with them and you look over and somebody else is totally fucking checked out. no matter how good that scene that you're doing is going, that just undercuts it, like in the worst way.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, if you do nothing else, the single most important thing that you can do is to, when somebody else does something cool, be right there going, oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, you smoked that orc. That was cool.
Yeah.
As
And
opposed
to
to, oh, I'm
everybody-
sorry, what just happened?
Right. Is
Yeah.
it my turn?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Let me know when my initiative comes around.
Yep.
No.
Absolutely.
Stay with us.
Everyone
can't
should
leave.
everyone should strive
Mhm.
to be the assistant to the DM.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, next post by user Daniel the Prawn. Consequences for my party killing 250 innocent civilians. We had a very fun session with just half of the usual party going on a side quest to kill an abomination that's been killing a village's flock of sheep for quite some time. After completing this quest, due to the absence of the more sensible party members, they decided to have some fun by barricading the entrances of a religious building, about 200 people, and throwing the burning, oiled-up monster corpse through a window. This resulted in the building burning down, and since the entrances were barricaded, many people died. They also decided to go on a looting and arson spree throughout the village, pillaging and burning along the way. What are some creative consequences here for what these monsters have done in this session?
They're bandits now. They're
Yeah.
the
just straight up.
townsfolk that survive will go on to tell the story of this band of crazy fuckers
Yeah.
who tried to murder them all on sacred ground, no less.
Mm-hmm.
And other towns will attack them on sight. That's
This also-
crazy.
And this is one of those things where I get a little annoyed at the passive voice that DM is using there. Like, it just sort of randomly happened that these people were in this
You let
church,
this happen.
and somehow it happened that they threw this burning monster corpse in there, and then just the building just naturally burned down. There was nothing I could do about that. It's like, okay, so the question is, you allowed this to happen. You facilitated this happening. You stood by while this happened. You rolled the dice to see how bad it was.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to be the consequences of
You
this?
actively participated in the
Exactly,
burning of this church.
So remember,
You
this is
know.
not a horror story episode. This is an advice episode.
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm
this
sorry.
is not him complaining about his psycho players. In fact, even in the post says, "P.S. I have no problem with how they've acted. They're very fun players to DM for."
I don't
So-
doubt
Yeah,
that.
so-
An injection of chaos seems to be very common in this game, and that's fine.
Yeah, this just feels like one of those, like, why are you asking us? What do you want to happen in your campaign?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
if
fair.
you want there to be consequences, what would happen if a group of former heroes walked into town and killed 200 people and then burnt the town to the ground?
Now, the other context that we don't necessarily have here, and this is like a big question I have about this, is, so he kind of does almost like a little bit of a throwaway line at the beginning where it was like, because the more sensible players weren't here, this happened. But is this going to be a thing where the other players get back to the table and say, what the fuck did you just do?
Yeah.
Because that's a very different situation than if the other players get back to the table and are like, oh, you scamps. Well, guess we're on the run from the law now.
Right.
And everybody laughs and they turn into bandits. If this was like a no kidding, like if this has created like a PvP situation, that's a very different question
Sure.
than if the other players would have been on board if they were there.
So
Sure.
then what do you do if this does turn into a PvP situation? Like, if those people come back and are like, are you fucking kidding me? Do you just retcon everything, or do you allow that to play out?
That's not an impossible option. It's not a great one. There's a lot of people saying that, we're not sure what these players' alignments are, and the players who are missing, we don't know what their alignments are. If this is already a semi-evil campaign, and maybe there's just like, lawful versus chaotic, but they're all still kind of evil, then this could just be a role-playing point between them.
Okay.
If these are good players and the evil ones kind of, have their little side adventure, then we could see something like a party split. Or if these are good players who are now turning evil, we could see the DM taking over the characters as evil NPCs. A couple different ways of doing it that way, if it's that kind of situation.
But if you consider this, like if you're running the game and you consider this like a regular plot development, like the kind of thing that would happen in your game, then you just, go forward and just do the social political math on it. Like Josie said, they're bandits now.
That's the vibe that I'm getting from this, is that this is
Yeah.
not super out of the ordinary. He's not looking for a way to
Yeah, that's
punish
what
the
it seems like to me,
players. He wants to punish the PCs. And like, because
They're
what they
bandits.
did is reprehensible, obviously. And, something in game has to happen. And then maybe he's just having us help him plan his next session. And there's nothing wrong. Like, so far, I'm on board. The top comment here, which I think is fantastic, especially because this happened at a religious building. A group of adventuring paladins is now on the hunt for these players.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one. And the flip side of that is that like some really hardcore bastards show up and say, wow, you guys are up and coming. I've got my eye on you.
Mm-hmm.
So you should come work for us. We're going to be taking over the kingdom. And we could use a couple of, maniacs like you guys have proven yourselves to be.
Yeah.
There's a whole quest line
if these are neutral or God forbid good players, that could be a great, temptation into either flipping alignment or just changing the whole course of the thing. If the whole party turns evil, no one has to take over anything.
Yeah, I think at the end, what it comes to is the consequences of this action depend on how you want the story to go.
Yeah. But that's
I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Actually. I hope they give some updates. Not very active in the comments.
I can't wait to ruin Greg's next campaign.
I mean, and like the one word answer that you could give to that, my players did this, they killed these 200 people and like burned it down and they're monsters. And what should the consequences be? You could just say Batman.
Yeah.
That's what the consequences should be. Like some 14-year-old kid is like, who like crawls out from under the burned bodies and is like, oh, I'm going to make it my mission to make those people pay. And then you've created your good aligned BBEG through that act, if that's how you want to do it. I mean, that's like, to me, that's almost more interesting than like, now there's a bunch of paladins after you, which is cool. That's another thing that you can do. But just the idea that doing this creates its own long-term problems that you're not thinking about in the fun of doing it is another, certainly a consequence that you can bring to bear there.
All right, let's do a couple more. This is from user Bloodbeater. Players revolt over one PC getting a wondrous item early on. A newer DM running a homebrew campaign. One of my players left the party on their own, broke into a shop and stole several items with several very high rolls. I rewarded the luck with a Cloak of Elvenkind. Currently, the party is level 3, but the homebrew setting is having them regain levels quickly as they restore their memory and power. Okay, so they were... Yeah, I see Jim shaking his head.
Amnesia, you say?
Oh my God, the worst D&D
Once
trope
the
ever.
other players finally discover that one of them has this, they refuse to play, calling it unfair. I have designed the campaign myself and am trying to gear them in spurts to be equivalent in gear as they were when they lost their powers to begin with. Do I backtrack and change the item, or am I doomed to be questioned and resisted every time I give a particular loot out? And
I feel that there's that's not necessarily an or.
Yeah.
You could give it back and yet still be doomed to be questioned every time.
As an edit for clarity
you already
here.
know the answer. You've just broken it up into 2 questions.
There's a quick edit for clarity. The players are all adults. We play online, text only via Discord on a continuous basis, with a typical day having 1 response minimum from each player. The solo mission is run aside from the general chat that the game is played in via direct messages in order to not clutter the page with walls of text that the other players wouldn't need to read through. My players have gone off on their own several times and done independent things. Okay, so I like this story from the title, and then it just sounds bad. This just sounds awful.
So much wrong with it. Oh my God.
This
so
sounds
you're
like
running a bunch of different one-on-one campaigns that sometimes come together.
Right. This sounds like that like text-based game that Edgardo came from.
Yes.
Where it's just like,
yeah.
Oh my God. I really wish we could find out what game that was, but whatever it is, it's shut down now. I don't know.
But I mean, but if we sincerely tackle the question as presented,
let's pretend this game doesn't suck.
I think no, there's no reason why you have to get like a Cloak of Elvenkind is not a game breaking magic item. It's a raw magic item. 3rd level for Cloak of Elvenkind, totally reasonable in my mind. All you need to do is to have a table talk explaining that thing that they explained to us. Because my hunch is that DM hasn't said to the players, look, everybody is going to get magic items. They're going to be doled out at different places and different times. Trust me that it's going to happen. And that's what they need to do. And if they can't get that level of trust from the players, then maybe it's not the best table. But they absolutely do need to communicate that to them first, rather than because I mean, the whole amnesia, I'm not a fan of the, you used to be 20th level characters, then some terrible thing happened. And so the gaining of levels is actually you regaining your memories and remembering how to, whatever, do your flurry of blows or whatever. I don't have any patience or interest in that. But if you're going to do that, you got to tell everybody that's what you're doing, get them all on board, and have everybody, rather than resent it when other people get stuff, have them excited that somebody has unlocked a memory or something like that. It's the stealing it from the magic item shop thing is lame.
Yeah.
But if that's how you're going to give them out, then you give them out. But you got to get everybody on board with this is how it's going to happen. It's not all going to happen all at once.
Sounds like a shit show.
Yep.
Yeah, sure does.
All right, let's do one more big one, and then a quick one to wrap this thing up. I'm new to DMing. Are these table rules reasonable? All right, here's a couple of rules here. So I found a group of,
Next
But
question.
no, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry,
Actually, tell me what they are.
Jim,
force a habit. I finally found a group of new players interested in playing with me. And since I'm still a green DM, I want some feedback on my table rules because I'm worried that I either may be missing something or a few of them may be too strict, although I think most of them are pretty reasonable. Following is copy-pasted from my rules document as screenshots are not allowed in subreddit. Number 1, this is the most important rule, is all in caps and bold. This is a cooperative tabletop role-playing game. We are here to have fun. As such, deliberately ruining another player's fun for any reason is a big no-no.
Yes. Next
Great
question.
rule.
Love it. Beautiful. So far, so good. 2, no rape or other sexually predatory behavior. You are allowed to have your character's backstory involve these things having been done to them if the other players are comfortable, and I sign off on it. And that part was in bold and italics. And I may
that's safety tools.
Yep.
That's lines and veils right there.
And I may reference these things as happening off screen if you are comfortable with these themes being in your game, but they won't happen on screen. And if your character does them, you will instantly be kicked.
Perfect.
2 for 2. 2 for 2.
That's
Beautiful.
great. Yeah, that's and real explicit about exactly what will happen.
Yes.
which is good.
Number 3, feedback and constructive criticism is not only allowed, but strongly encouraged. I am new to DMing and want to improve my skills. On a related note, italics, if I ever make you uncomfortable, bold italics, please tell me.
Yeah.
It is not your fault if elements of my game upset you or put you off, nor is it my intent to have them do so. 3 for 3.
Yeah. Just 3 for
So
3. Yeah.
good, except so I will say except they should say what form that feedback takes and when it happens.
Okay.
Email me, DM me, wait till the end of the game, whatever, something like that. But just be explicit about how to give that.
Totally fair. Number 4, all homebrew and third-party material must be approved by me. None of these things are always or inherently bad, but I have been at the table where other players using game-breaking third-party homebrew material before, and it was not fun.
Yeah.
4 for 4?
4 out of.
I agree. I think the other players should all get a veto as well. I think everybody at the table has to agree that you're going to bring something in and it's okay. And that should be the criteria for it. But cool. That's good that these
are great. These are great. Number 5, absolutely no out-of-character bigotry against real-life marginalized groups allowed. This and Rule 2 should probably be the easiest to follow, but I figured I'd put it in just to be safe.
Yeah, these are all great.
And this ties a little bit into our last horror story as well, where we brought some Catholicism tropes into a game where it didn't belong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And number 6, I'll leave the precise raunch levels up to the rest of you, but I am not comfortable with explicit sex scenes and won't do them for you. I'm sorry. If you want to do them with another player or more than one in DMs and they're okay with it, that's fine, but I won't do them with you.
Yeah, if you want to have cyber sex, please don't do it where I can see.
Right. So I was reading this one blind to you guys when I saw, are these table rules reasonable? And we all started shaking our heads. We're just no. And then we read them. We're like, oh yeah. No, these are great. In fact, I'm
Yeah,
probably
this
gonna
is all.
I'm probably gonna just copy paste these and like bring them to my table when because I get a lot of new players. So I think this is gonna be just who is this again? This is user Kaiser Arrowfield.
Yeah.
Excellent. Brilliant. This should
Yeah, that's
be
great safety and consent stuff. And it's funny because it's so DMAcademy that we heard table rules and we thought like
We
I
panicked.
shouldn't say we.
I panicked.
I thought it was going to be the like healing potions do an extra D8 and
Sure.
short rests work this way and like whatever you get an extra feat, a free
Yeah,
feat
yeah,
when you
yeah.
build your
Mechanics
character
stuff.
and like house rules and not table rules.
Right.
Those are great table rules. That's
Yeah.
all really solid.
And to be fair, they
consent and
did
safety
call
stuff
the
there.
table rules.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I like the
that's not
distinction you
us for
have.
misinterpreting and assuming that everyone's an asshole in
Yep.
this game. But
Yep.
no, Kaiser Arrowfield, these are fantastic. This should be a sticky on the top of every post ever. I'm literally just going to copy this and add in Jim's little addendums to it and make that. This is going to be now my table rules because even my friends who have they bring their wives and stuff. It's like I don't want to watch them talk about fucking each other at my table. I just don't. That's not fun for me.
I have a little different framework that comes from that indie game space that I'm in, where we use like lines and veils and the X card and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this is just all of that kind of laid out in a slightly different way, and that's great.
Now, if you have things like rule number 2, if players are uncomfortable with stuff, if they express discomfort in certain things, then you can then go more granular into lines and veils and X cards and that kind of stuff.
Script
But this is
change, all
a
that
great
sort of thing,
overview, and if everyone's cool, then you don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing I like about this set of rules is that it's not just rules by a standard sense. It is, these are my boundaries
Mm-hmm.
for how to play, how I will play this game. If you do not align with these boundaries, we are not compatible.
This is not the game for you. Right.
Yeah, it's not just saying, here are the rules you will follow. It's, here are the rules I agree to follow too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's the DM saying, I'm going to tell you what my rules for myself are. Yeah, the boundaries thing that's a great observation, Josie. That's really good.
Yeah, totally. All right, one more quick one, then we'll wrap this episode up. Now, the post itself is very long, and I'm not reading all this. But the question itself is...
Like you do. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Post is actually way too long for this question. The actual question is the DM expected to ask, are you really sure when something stupid is about to go down?
No, I don't think so. I think you can let them learn from their mistakes. You don't have to let them know they're making a mistake.
I mean, I think that the DM is required to clearly communicate what the consequences will be. And if there's some kind of mechanical thing going on, that this is the reverse metagaming thing that we talk about sometimes, right? Right? Where, are you really sure you want to try and run across the lava unprotected?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is one question, but okay, just so that you understand, you'll take 14d6 every step. Like, that's a different thing. That's something concrete for them to consider. You know what I mean? That to kind of explain the actual mechanical consequences of what they'll do is the appropriate thing to do. Like, are you sure only works if you then explain why they might be unsure.
So if there's a question of, do they understand what's going to happen within the confines of the game, as opposed to, you really think it's smart to run across lava. You think that's a good idea right now. There's two different approaches to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, depending on what are you shoring, I can see that distinction there.
Or even just a quick, give me a wisdom check, and then literally whatever they roll, it's like, you're pretty sure that this is hotter than you can handle.
You're pretty sure that your last idea was really fucking dumb.
You're having second thoughts about this.
I don't and I don't even do, you're pretty sure. I say, your character would know this.
Yeah.
And I'm very comfortable saying that, you grew up in the mountains, you have some idea of what the effects of falls from different heights are. I don't need to I can tell you what the range of options there is. And especially anything that's absolute certain doom. I will just come right out and say, that is absolute certain doom. If you do that, you will die.
This reminds me sort of a previous episode where we talked about characters where it was like a sandstorm was coming and they were like, oh, I'm just going to go to sleep. It's like, no. Your character understands that this is a life or death situation. In world, in character, there's no way he wouldn't, given his stats and having a brain. So you're going to need to do something that isn't just going to sleep.
I remember that story.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your character has to respond to the stimuli around it in its universe in a way that makes sense to it, both mechanically and narratively.
Yeah.
You would not leave your sword at the coat check.
Yeah.
That one too. All right.
Yep.
That's enough for today.
Yeah.
I love doing these. I learned a lot today too. I'm absolutely going to be using those table rules as well. But thank you so much for listening. Your call to action today is to simply just share the podcast. There's got to be some D&D players that you enjoy talking about the game with, and I'm sure they, if you like it, they might like it too.
Wait, you're going to end the podcast, Jason?
Are you sure you want to do that?
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?
What consequences would happen if I were to wrap this episode up today?
I'd be able to go make dinner.
Yeah, Josie could eat, so that's probably best.
You know how I get when I'm hangry.
Okay.
All right, so you'll allow it?
I will allow it.
Yeah.
Just this once.
You talked me into it. Yeah.
But share this podcast. Check us out, curmudgeonsanddragons.com. Jim, Josie, thanks for hanging out.
Anytime.
You bet.
We'll see y'all next time. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Curmudgeons and Dragons. Please share this with your favorite adventurers. Leave a review on Apple and follow us on social media. All links can be found at curmudgeonsanddragons.com. Practice safe adventuring, my friends.
This has been a JTP Audio podcast. Thanks for listening.